Now this is more like it. When it comes to the early Bergman films, and I mean the very early Bergman films, Music in Darkness is actually quite alright. I'm really upset that it's not a part of the Ingmar Bergman cinema box set that Criterion Collection released, but it was probably something to do with rights issues. That's unfortunate because I actually like this one. It starts off with a military shooting exercise gone wrong, where this gentleman over here, while trying to change the targets and save this dog, was accidentally shot on sight, rendering him blind. He readjusts for most of the film while strengthening his love with music, which I think is a very prevalent theme here because Ingmar Bergman himself was obsessed with music. For crying out loud, he adapted the magic flute, a lot of his films play like a symphony, and he himself said he would rather go blind than deaf because he could never cope without ever hearing music again. With that in mind, this becomes an even stronger film because you could tell this is the first time in his early projects that this came from a place from within his heart, as opposed to just his mind and the philosophies which he battled with. Of course, you're going to find common themes that you find in a lot of Bergman films, like class struggles, which affects the two leads here, battles with one's faith, and one's place in society. Of course, while this isn't one of Bergman's greatest films ever, it is my favorite out of the four that I've had to review so far, because, hey, for once the plots don't circle around for an eternity. You feel like you actually go somewhere with this film, and I like that. And of course, it is extremely strong when it comes to his artistic direction, something which is a great sign of things to come with the director, more than what we've seen already with the earlier films. Feel so badly for having to cut this into smaller segments, but the opening dream sequence when the lead character is first blinded is something that's just extraordinary, especially for the early Bergman works. You can see where Bergman himself continues to grow as an artistic director after films like this one, but to see such an early example of this, two things. First off, I feel badly for having to even cut any of this at all. It's all spectacular. Secondly, this bothers me even more that this wasn't remastered for Criterion. Imagine this sequence on Blu-ray. I mean, it's harrowing, it's upsetting, it's gorgeous actually, especially for something from the late 40s. I mean, this is some out there stuff. I love every second of this opening, and yes, it definitely pushes it a little bit further than the other films I've seen so far, because the other films don't feature this. This is just spectacular filmmaking, especially from such a young auteur. And then we get to the ending, which I won't reveal too much, of course, but there is some great cutting and some great tension here created by Bergman. Between this ending, the opening dream sequence, the tension throughout, the plot actually going somewhere as opposed to being stalled for a duration of the movie, this is the first film where I think, yes, Bergman's finally figuring it out when it comes to the cinematic language. Of course, I'm giving it such praise, and I'm not going to say that it's a masterpiece of Bergman's, but for the early films, it's excellent, and I think it's worth the time of day. It's just unfortunate that it's been pushed to the wayside and kind of forgotten about, actually. We have yet to reach the excellent, perfect early films of Bergman's, which we will get to in a couple of episodes from now, actually. But where does this one fall, now that I've given it such praise and basically also said that it's not, well, perfect? I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. That's because, of course, it has great strengths when it comes to pushing a narrative and creating an artistic direction that Bergman had previously not quite seen. It gets a couple of deductions for being a little predictable, a little bit formulaic when it comes to the actual basis of the story, but I can proudly say at least we have a story that goes from point A to point B, so that's already an improvement. Speaking of improvements, have a great 2019 everyone, Happy New Year, and the Film Doctor is out. Take care.